Hello there, doctors. In today's episode, Dr. Boss, we have a power tax strategist and attorney, Matthew Sercely. He is the owner and founder of Accurate Tax Advice. And in today's episode, he's going to give us some strategies on how doctors can save money on tax and also other strategies that you can do right now. So welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. So let's just dive into the meat of this episode is how can physicians who are high income earners save on tax? Because the last 27 years, physicians are mainly the high income earners and they get taxed even sometimes 40% plus. And what are the challenges that you're seeing for physicians and how some strategies that you can help them save on taxes?
So physicians really have two problems going on at the same time. One, they owe a lot in taxes, but two, they're super busy. So they oftentimes don't have the time to learn enough or do anything to avoid those taxes.
Okay, so we know we pay a lot of taxes. We don't have time, but because we weren't taught on how to do that. So teach us on something that we can do.
So you have a lot more options if you have your own company, obviously. There are retirement plans you can set up. There are defined contribution plans that work great for doctors. You can set aside potentially $300,000 a year plus for retirement in just a defined contribution plan and avoid the taxes on that at the same time. That's one of my favorite easy things to do for doctors. It takes about an hour to set up and then it's fire and forget. It automatically takes care of itself once you set it up.
And is that something that we need a professional to set up for us, or can we do it ourselves, or can a CPA do it, or you need somebody specialized like yourself?
So that's something that you need a company to manage the defined contribution plan for you. Places like Fidelity and Schwab can do that.
Okay.
You can set it up yourself, but if you want to optimize the numbers, then yes, definitely work with a tax advisor or CPA because there are some calculations as to how much money you can put in that can be a little bit complicated to make.
I see. Gotcha. And how do you start that process?
Process of setting up the plan.
Uh-huh.
So really it's you want to find your provider, whoever is actually going to be managing the funds for you, and you contact them to begin the process, or again, you have your CPA or attorney contact them. It's not really much different than setting up a 401k or anything like that, other than the amounts are calculated very differently. So 401ks are pretty much set limits, whereas the defined contribution plans are based both on your income and your age for how much you can set aside.
Interesting. So how much are we looking at saving by doing that?
So if you are somebody who can set aside $300,000 a year, you're in the 37% federal tax bracket. That's over $100,000 a year in taxes that you're avoiding. Throw in state taxes. If God forbid, if you're in California, no offense to anyone in California, you could be practically at a 50% tax rate. So it could be nearly $150,000 of savings.
Wow, $100,000 to $150,000 in saving annually, right? Oh, that's crazy. All right. So how come we don't know any about this? How come no one tells us about this at all? This is the first I've heard of it.
Well, most CPAs aren't tax advisors and most attorneys aren't tax advisors. Most CPAs, they exist to calculate numbers for you, basically. You give them numbers, they give you numbers back. Most of them don't think it's their job to give you advice unless they specifically say that that's what they do. And my experience is probably less than 1% of CPAs really do any sort of real tax advice, even though everyone assumes that that's what they do.
Right. What you're saying is that if you really want to save on tax strategy, you really need an attorney and tax advisor, and not a CPA can't do it, and most attorney can't do it either.
That's mostly what I'm saying. There are some CPAs who do what I do, and they are very good. I think I'm really good at it. I think that the legal education I have has trained me to think in a better way, to solve problems in a better way than a lot of CPAs do. But there are CPAs who do this. There are attorneys who do this. But yeah, you want to look for someone who's saying that they're a tax advisor or a tax strategist. Otherwise, you're just getting an accountant to do your taxes.
Gotcha. So Matthew, what sets you apart from other CPAs or the CPA that does tax strategy? What sets you apart other than, like you said, you mentioned your background in law and then tax. And I'm sure you are the best at what you do. What makes you so unique?
So there's really two things. One, I am primarily a strategist. You can't hire me just to do your taxes. I don't take people on unless I take them on as a strategy client. And so I have a very limited number of clients I work with. At any one time, I try to say less than 100 clients so that I can actually devote time to them. I meet with all my clients at least quarterly, many of them monthly, to go over taxes. The other thing that makes me unique, especially compared to a CPA, is that as an attorney, I do have attorney client privilege with my clients. So you can discuss whatever you want with your CPA. God forbid if you get audited and there's notes in their file, the IRS will get those notes from your CPA. They will not get my notes. So if you want to really kind of push the edges of what you can do, really go aggressive, it's a lot safer to do that with me than it is a CPA, because you don't want exhibit 1 in the audit to be the memo from your CPA saying, hey, that's kind of aggressive, it may not work, right?
Interesting. Interesting. That is a consideration there for sure. So, what other thing that you would recommend for doctors that are now had been in business for the last 5, 10 years, and really now, what are the other things that they can do to save money on tax other than what you mentioned earlier for $100,000 annually? That's a lot.
So
What else can they look at?
the very first thing they should look at is, are they set up correct as an entity? So most doctors practice with a PLLC or a PC, and you can then typically choose how you're taxed in there different ways. Well, those different ways of taxes, there is an optimal way for you that may change. It might be one way this year. It might be better a different way in 3 or 4 or 5 years. Every, again, 2 to 3 years at a minimum, you want to go back and check, hey, should I be taxed as an S Corp? Should I be taxed as a pass-through? Should I be taxed as a C Corp? What is going to be the optimal way to avoid taxes? And so let's say you go from just being taxed as a pass-through entity, the default for most of these, to being an S Corp. It basically costs you no money. It's a paperwork change, and you're instantly going to start saving anywhere from about 3 to 5% on your taxes. No investment, no cost, just suddenly more money coming into your pocket.
What? That is crazy. That is crazy. You know what? I have been LLC since we first started. I've been an LLC for 22 years. So maybe I need to look at whether we need to change our structure. So having said that, since we're touching upon that subject now, can you teach us about what is an S Corp, a PLLC, and a C Corp?
Sure. So almost every state doesn't let doctors be in a regular LLC or a regular corporation. You have to be in a professional LLC or a professional corporation, and only doctors can be owners with you. So if your spouse can't be your co-owner unless they're also a doctor. And this also applies to lawyers, this applies to architects, many of the professions. Everybody who's an owner of the PLLC, the professional LLC, has to be a member of that profession. Not all states allow both. So California does not have PLLCs at all. They only have PCs. I know multiple other states that do the same thing. They only have one or they have the other. So you may have limits on your choices. If you have the option, I recommend being in the PLLC, because as a PLLC, you can pick how you're taxed. And again, you can actually change that in theory every year. So there's just the default taxation as if you were a 1099 employee. It's a sole proprietorship. It usually is not the best thing for a doctor, because you end up paying payroll taxes or self-employment taxes on your entire income, whereas you can avoid some of those with the other strategies. It's a great way to run a business if you're making $30,000 or $40,000 a year as a side hustle. It's terrible when it's your main job. The benefit of an S Corp is you become kind of two people. You become an employee working for the LLC, getting a salary, and then on that salary, which has to be a reasonable salary, you do pay all those payroll taxes. But on the portion that's not your salary, that are your profits, you avoid those payroll taxes. And again, they start off at 15.3%, and then they drop down to about 3.5%. But there's also, if you make enough money, there's some surcharges where they can go back up to 5%. And so there's really no benefit to not being an S Corp over the default just pass through. C Corps are taxed totally differently. And when you think of a corporation, a publicly traded company, they are all C Corps. In their case, they pay you still a wage, but they get taxed separately. So in the case of an S Corp, you pay all the taxes for the company still. It passes through you on your tax return. A C Corp has a separate tax return, and they pay a 21% tax rate on their profits. And then any profits you take out, you pay those taxes a second time. And so it's called double taxation. and can often lead to a much worse tax situation. But there are rare cases where it is actually the optimal way, because if you are not taking out your profits, let's say you're trying to grow your practice, well, you're still paying yourself a salary, you're still paying the income tax on your salary, but all your profits you're reinvesting, you're just paying a 21% tax rate instead of maybe the 37% tax rate you would be at. And then again, if you're a PLLC, after you've grown your company as much as you need to grow it, you want to start taking the profits out, you can convert it back to the S Corp, start taking the profits out, and avoid the double taxation. So they all have their place, and they may all be right for an individual practitioner at some point, and then not optimal when things change.
Wow, that is very, very powerful. I haven't heard about it phrased like that. So, does all doctors need to do this throughout their for their business? You think?
I think every doctor, at a minimum of every about 5 years, should consider, how should I be taxed in my business? What's the optimal way to do it? And this goes further, because so there's the basic structure of your business, but you can complicate it sometimes and make it better. So let's say you have an office for your practice that you own. Many doctors hold that office as part of their practice. Well, that can actually have some nasty tax consequences to it. You're oftentimes far better off putting that property into a separate company, and then your practice rents it from that separate company. This makes a couple things just cleaner, but it also has the benefit of, now everything you're paying for rent goes from being earned income, where again, maybe you're paying payroll taxes on it or self-employment taxes on it, to it being rental income where there are no payroll taxes on it. So you've basically have changed one type of income into another type of income, and again, saved potentially quite a bit of money.
Wow, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. And wow, that's very, very interesting. So, how do we know what we need to do? I mean, we're not taught how to do this. We're taught to take care of patients. We're taught to go out and either work for somebody or start for somebody. How does a doctor start out if he was gonna have his own business? Would you advise?
So if you're talking about someone who does not yet have a business and is looking to
Uh huh.
start a business, I actually really would advise just kind of start by jumping into it and doing it, because starting a business is hard. Not every business will succeed, obviously. And frankly, you need to worry more about being profitable than worrying about what your taxes are going to be for the first 6 months or a year. Once the practice is actually up and running, then it's a great time to reach out to a tax advisor and hire a specialist, right? Just like you're a specialist. You, as a doctor, people come to you because they don't know what they're doing when it comes to disease or medicine or whatever. Well, the exact same applies to me. People come to me because I know a whole lot about taxes. I have devoted my life to taxes and legally minimizing them. Come to a specialist and work with a specialist, just like people come to you.
Gotcha. And I love the word you said, legally minimizing them. And we all want to do that. And so when you said you're a tax strategist, you don't do the taxes, you advise, and they would still have to work with a CPA to actually do the implementation.
So they can have me do their taxes. Frankly, I hate doing taxes. I would rather you keep your CPA and have them do the taxes and just be your advisor. But I do work with a number of people. They don't want to have two separate people to talk to. They want one person to do it all. And so I can do it all. It's not my preference to do it all. But no one can hire me just to do their taxes. Everybody who's a client of mine, the focus is always the strategy, and the taxes, if we do it, it's basically an add-on.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. And so who will be your ideal client that you will be working with that you can really help them?
So I do help many medical professionals. I work with a lot of doctors, a lot of dentists. Basically, I don't work with people who don't know a lot in taxes. So obviously, I gravitate towards certain professions over others. If you're making over $300,000 a year in a business, or maybe you don't have a business yet, I can help people without a business. It's just harder, but you need to be probably making $500,000 or more a year as an employee. That I can definitely help you save taxes at that point.
Right. And you're saying you can help save at least like $100,000 or so annually?
I mean, it depends on what your taxes are. Pretty
Mhm.
regularly, I reduce taxes by at least a third to
Mm,
40% for people with a business. It's
mm.
usually closer to 20% with people without a business. But so, let's say you're a very successful doctor, you're making $1 million a year. through your practice, you're almost certainly paying between federal and state taxes, assuming you have state taxes, $350,000, $400,000 a year in taxes. Yeah, at that point, I'm definitely going to be saving you $100,000, maybe more a year in taxes.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, very good. Because that's what we want to hear. We work hard for our revenue and we want to make sure that we can keep as much of it legally as much as we can. So how can our listeners find out more about you and start working with you and learning from you?
Yep, they should go to my website, agoristtaxadvice.com. That's AGORIST, taxadvice.com. They can sign up for a free consultation with me. It's about a 30-minute phone call. I have a conversation with everybody before they hire me to make sure we're a good fit. Yeah, schedule a conference or an informational call with me. And if we're a good fit, we move forward. If we're not a good fit, that's fine. I do turn away about 20% of people myself because it's just, no, you're not making enough money, or very rarely, you're already doing everything that I can think of, so you don't need me.
Gotcha. Well, that's awesome that they get a chance to do free consultation with you as well. So I will put the link to in the description here. And doctors, this is gold because I've been in business for 27 years and I didn't even know some of the strategies that Matthew had talked about. Certainly we'll explore that. Reach out to him probably because we're working with a CPA and a lawyer at this time for our business. So I have to kind of dive into what we're doing right now. We've been in business for 27 years, but I can tell you this, I don't think we switched from PLLC to anything else in the last 27 years. So God may reach out to you there, Matthew. So grateful that you are here to share your wisdom, and that Matthew will be at Dr. Podfest on January 15th in Orlando, Florida at the Renaissance Hotel. And it's a one-day event where we help doctors leverage their medical expertise online so they can have impact and freedom. And he'll be delivering gold and strategies, and probably even more so than he did today. I can tell you, if you just do one thing that he said today, you're probably going to save $100,000 annually. Reach out to him, schedule that free consultation. His time is valuable and he's giving that away for you guys. So you never know, right? You never know until you reach out, because you may just save yourself $100,000. So Matthew, any last word before we end this episode?
Nope, I'm just looking forward to hearing from people and hopefully meeting some of you guys at the convention next week.
Okay, well, thank you. And doctor, just know that you are just not only a doctor, you are a Dr. Boss, and we will see you at Dr. Podfest on January 15, 2026.